Hi, good morning, everyone. Teng Boo from Capital Dynamics again. Just a few days before Chinese New Year, so we have a lovely topic for you today. Well, actually, this is a request from one of our followers with the account name of Hindun8481, who requested that I give my views as to whether places like Penang, Johor Bahru would need LRT or MRT. So we are responding to the request. And if you have read the long overdue Penang LRT was recently launched. So is it to be welcomed or is it to be cursed? And more importantly, should other Malaysian cities and towns all over the country have their own rapid public transport network as well? So I will share with you my views without fear, without favour. And if you notice in our YouTube channel or in any of our publications, including our iCapital publication, we don't have any advertisement income, zero advertisers. That's to ensure that whatever views that we give are given without conflicts of interest, without a hidden agenda. On your left is Malacca's by now very famous traffic jam. It's not just during school holidays. The traffic jams in Malacca are horrendous. On the right hand side, of course, Penang, which the residents in Penang, the visitors in Penang, whether businessmen or on leisure, would know full well that it can be really maddening. And I think it was last year, this TomTom is a traffic monitoring company based in Netherlands, named Penang as the worst city in terms of traffic jam in the whole of Malaysia. But is it just these two? Johor Bahru, you will know, is also getting from bad to worse, from better to baddest. When you come to KL, when you're driving in KL, you just pray that it doesn't rain, that it doesn't pour, because when it pours, when it rains, God help you. It's not worth it. A lot of Malaysians have shared that these terrible traffic congestions have actually led them to resign their jobs or even migrate to Singapore or to other countries. And very often you hear Malaysian politicians talking about expanding highways, improving our infrastructure to solve Malaysia's traffic problems. I wouldn't call it solution, I call it excuses from all kinds of politicians year in, year out. And the only result is our traffic congestion is getting worse, from better to baddest, pardon my English, just to emphasize how serious this problem is. It's not a problem, it's a traffic crisis. It's an urban congestion crisis. And do you know that Malaysia is among the most stressful countries to drive? I drive to work every day. I was fortunate, I planned a long time ago to make sure that whatever office I have is near where I stay, or where I stay is always near where I work. So I'm among maybe the lucky few. But the majority of us, whether in Klang Valley, or in Penang, or in Ipoh, in Malacca, in Alor, in Kota Bahru, in Johor Bahru, it is a stressful something that most of us do not look forward to. This is from TomTom, this 2024, the ranking. Penang, Georgetown, ranked number 1. And Penang is supposed to be Silicon Valley. I mean, you're supposed to have clever people, sophisticated planners, right? Good execution, right? Number 2, surprise of all surprises, Kota Bahru. Okay, Penang, you may say a lot of tourists, business expansion. Kota Bahru, a slow-moving, slow-growing city in Malaysia, ranked number 2. Then Ipoh, supposed to be a sleepy town. Johor Bahru, okay, you could excuse, you could blame it on the Singaporeans. And KL, the forever number one was knocked down by Georgetown and so on. Seberang Perai, which is the opposite of Georgetown, Klang, Kajang. My view is this: all Malaysian cities, and towns suffer from serious traffic congestions. I've driven in, I travel a lot in Malaysia by rail, by plane, by cars, and I know pretty much what Malaysians have to go through, whether it is in Kota Kinabalu or back in Peninsular Malaysia. This topic today is very timely as millions of Chinese Malaysians get ready to travel for their Chinese New Year reunion dinners. And of course, many other Malaysians will be on the move as well because it is a long break. It is possibly the longest break that you're going to get in 2025 and in many years. And I guarantee you traffic congestions along the highways and roads are going to be a certainty. The only question is, how bad will they be? Well, maybe this year you might be a bit lucky because the West Coast Expressway apparently is open. So maybe that will take some of the traffic load from the North-South Highway, especially from KL to Penang. But after suffering for hours on the highway, then you get stuck in traffic jams when you reach Penang, Ipoh, Malacca, Johor Bahru, or wherever you're going back for a reunion or for holiday. Now, if these traffic problems are seasonal and infrequent, maybe, we Malaysians, we can have a tidak apa attitude, then perhaps the temper and the mood of millions of ordinary Malaysian commuters would not be so bad, right? But more importantly, Malaysia would not suffer massive economic losses year in, year out. A consequence that most people don't seem to be aware of, a consequence that most politicians don't seem to be interested in tackling. The reality in Malaysia is that even when there are no major festivals, severe jams and serious congestions happen in all Malaysian cities and towns, and this is an everyday affair, whether it rains or not. The scary reality is that this problem is not a recent phenomenon. Traffic congestions in Malaysia's urban areas have been a serious problem for a long time. I remember I used to work in some offices in Jalan Rajachulan in Kuala Lumpur. This was in the mid-80s. This was about 40 years ago in Rajachulan. Traffic jams then were as bad as now. 40 years later, it hasn't improved. So it's been a serious problem for a long time. The only difference is that this traffic problem, is becoming more and more serious. So what should we do? Well, based on this social media voting 3 years ago, out of 2,700 people who voted, 40% in Penang says you must have LRT. 20% Johor say Johor must have. Sabah, Sarawak, you would imagine Sarawak, Sarawak is as big as the entire peninsular Malaysia. They also think they need LRT. At the moment, only KL and the surrounding areas have train-based public transport system. We're not talking about bus and so on, but we're talking about train-based, rapid type of public transport system. LRT, monorail, MRT. Shouldn't the other Malaysian towns have the same rapid transport system? Or are they simply too expensive for Malaysia? Is it a luxury? This is a historic groundbreaking of the Mutiara LRT line in Penang. Finally, this is supposed to be linking downtown Georgetown. I think link starts from Komta to Penang International Airport and the Silicon Island and so on and so forth. And finally, now it's called Mutiara LRT, is being launched. Well, it's supposed to start construction this year and expected to be completed in 6 years' time. And of course, you know, during the construction period of 6 long years, there's going to be a lot of disruption, a lot of chaos. In other countries, in other developed countries, or even in the country like China, which is not a developed status yet, they make sure that when you do any big construction, the ordinary traffic flow doesn't get disrupted. But somehow, we in Malaysia, we take perpetual construction as an accepted fact of life, unfortunately. Johor, people say also needs LRT because it's got poor public transport system. I mean, this person is interesting in Reddit. There's a comment in Reddit 22 days ago. He's lived in JB his whole life, sad to say public transport here is poor, zero improvement over the years, no LRT, no MRT, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, you can see how frustrated this person is, right? Even the Grab is also, the prices of Grab is like scammers. And the CIQ bus terminal is small and crowded. The taxis, you call them, they let you wait for 10-15 minutes and then they call back and say, no taxi available. The ordinary Malaysians are very tolerant, very patient people. Perak Menteri Besar in 2022 says, oh, no need. Say the proposed LRT project in Ipoh is only in the research process. It will not be implemented anytime soon because he explained that Ipoh is not like KL where there's heavy traffic flow and so on and so forth. And he says traffic flow is okay and parking spaces are not a problem. That's very different from the ordinary Ipoh resident, what they are saying. This is obviously an Ipoh resident, right? Please let me know how this is efficient. Just to find out how easy it is to take a bus in Ipoh. This is a bus. I went to the bus stop in front of my house, waited for 40 minutes, 40, and reached the UTC 30 minutes later. Finished up in 10 minutes, took a Grab back home, which took a long 10 minutes. So even for buses, it's not this Ramasamy guy is obviously correct. It's not just about efficiency, it's not just about pretty buses, it's about frequency, scheduling, timeliness, and accessibility. Can you imagine? An ordinary Ipoh resident has got a lot more common sense than our politicians. This is what, Malacca. Malacca needs good public transport now. This in 2021. Oh, we knew it all along. It's just that nobody is hearing us. This car dependency in Malacca has been contributing to the worsening congestion in Bandar Malacca. It's not just Bandar Malacca, it's also in the surrounding areas. This is somebody who posted in 2024, right? Malacca's narrow roads and lanes, blah, 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 will not be able to cope the volume of private cars and vehicles today. So he says the current traffic situation in Malacca is simply not sustainable and solutions need to be found. But sorry, this Malacca, nobody is listening to you, so there'll be no solutions for Malacca. So sorry, so sad. You got to tolerate this horrible traffic situation in Malacca for God knows how many years.
Are you tired of doing investment research on stock markets? Want to spend time on your hobbies or go out with your friends instead? Introducing iCapital, where you can get independent, objective, and comprehensive investment advice on the go. Available in English and Mandarin and can be accessed via app, website, and print copy. We provide thorough, first-hand research-based findings on listed companies, economies, and stock markets, and clear perspective of how markets interact and how they influence investments, as well as provide Malaysian and global stock recommendations, stock portfolios with outstanding performance to follow. Subscribe now to iCapital for stock news. From only 49 ringgit a year, start investing like a fund manager. Subscribe now at www.icapital.biz.
These are population sizes of selected Malaysian cities: Ipoh, Georgetown, Malacca, JB, from 2011 to 2024, right? You can see Ipoh from 2011 to 2024, the population has increased in absolute terms by 191,000 people. Hey, that's quite a lot. No? That's an increase of almost 29%. Georgetown, increased by 77,000. This is Georgetown, I'm not counting the surrounding areas. Increased by almost 78,000 or about 10.5%. Malacca, 200,000. That tiny little place, 200,000 increase, jump up by 26%. And Johor Bahru, 279,000 people, additional people, or 35% increase in population just in 13 years. What about the next 13 years? Now, European cities, let's compare. Those with about 500,000 to 1 million people per city. Frankfurt actually is not a big city, it's only about 100,000. Nuremberg in Greece, Italy, Catania only 500,000, Genoa, The Hague, and so on and so forth. So you can see, right? Like in Utrecht, in Netherlands, 500,000 people, which is maybe smaller than even Georgetown. But all of them got MRT or LRT. So, as I explained in my previous videos, there's a lot of difference between economic growth and economic development. Malaysia has wrongly been focusing on economic growth. That's why we have a lot of low-skilled, low-wage foreigners. We should be focusing on quality economic development so that Alor will have MRT, Penang, Georgetown will have MRT, Ipoh MRT, and so on and so forth. That is a developed country. This is a 2015 World Bank report, which I wrote, which I published in iCapital in 2015 very prominently, because at that time, our media didn't bother to talk about it. They were obsessed with 1MDB. For Malaysia, unfortunately, we have more concerns than just markets running. The media seems to still be focusing on 1MDB, but I think we have to sit back and ask, are there any other issues, serious issues, more than just 1MDB? For example, in June this year, the World Bank, an international institution, published a very lengthy 93-page report on Malaysia's traffic jam problem. And we said at that time, I wrote at that time, that yes, 1MDB is a serious matter, it's huge, but our traffic crisis is even bigger than 1MDB, right? 1MDB in a sense has been overcome, but our traffic crisis is worsened, and it will get worse in the next 10-15 years. So what World Bank wrote? Congestion imposes a high economic and personal toll. It is estimated that commuters in Greater Kuala Lumpur travel 29 kilometers per hour slower on average during the morning peak hours compared with the off-peak hours due to congestion, which means it translates into income losses of 11 to 20 billion ringgit annually for Kuala Lumpur, or 1 to 1.8% of Malaysia's total GDP, just from delays alone. If you include cost of fuel wasted and so on and so forth, carbon emission and so on and so forth, the total cost of traffic congestion in Greater Kuala Lumpur, estimated by the World Bank, conservatively, is at 1.1 to 2.2% of Malaysia's GDP in 2014. These estimates do not take into account for the reduction in subjective well-being that is consistently associated with commuting. You know, you get road rage, blah, blah, blah. You're in a bad mood, you quarrel with your wife, you quarrel with your girlfriend. Those costs are not taken into account. And this was 10 years ago. This is what we added. Bear in mind that World Bank's 2015 estimates only relate to traffic congestion in Greater KL. As I said, every Malaysian city and town suffers from serious and worsening congestion, right? So even Kota Baru. Now, if you add in all the major towns and cities in Kuala Lumpur and the other factors that the World Bank left out in their estimate, urban congestion can easily cause economic losses amounting to 4 to 6% of Malaysia's GDP every year. This is my estimate. In 2023, Malaysia's GDP was about 400 billion US dollar or 1.8 trillion ringgit. Right? So if traffic congestion caused an economic loss of 5% of Malaysia's economy per year, that loss is equal to 90 billion ringgit losses per year. You multiply that by 10 years, by 15 years, you're looking at losses of in the trillions. How can this not be called a crisis? The situation in KL and adjacent areas is even more worrying. I wrote in iCapital in June 2022, right? The article was called Terrible Klang Valley. So let me quote one paragraph in this very frank and very scathing analysis. The Klang Valley, home to millions of Malaysians, has consistently been raped and damaged by bad, indifferent urban designing and planning, underpinned by rampant corruption and an administrative system where the big property owners, the big property developers and contractors and politicians are our overlords. Urban design and planning for the Klang Valley exists to provide whatever little legitimacy or camouflage they can provide to a public administrative system that has rotted to its core. I cannot be more frank, I cannot be more scathing than this. This was written in June 2022 in our iCapital newsletter. Malaysia has the second highest number of private car ownership in Asia, just behind Japan. In 2020, Japan has 612 cars per 1,000 people. Malaysia has 535 cars. We have got more car ownership than South Korea. Now, Malaysia is much poorer and more backwards than Japan, but our private car ownership is just a little bit below that of Japan. What is wrong? Why? You know why? Because we don't have good, efficient, accessible public transport system throughout the whole country. Malaysia's urban congestion problem is worsening not just because there are more Malaysians. We also have to take into account the millions of foreign tourists and, more importantly, domestic tourists moving around Malaysia throughout the whole year. It is the mobility of domestic tourists that can be very troublesome for our non-existent public transport or overloaded public transport. How many domestic tourists do we have? This is 2023. Selangor, about 27 million domestic tourists in 1 year. This is not counting Wilayah Persekutuan KL. The KL FT has got 22 million, and so on and so forth. If you go down even places like Terengganu, Kelantan, Terengganu has got about 11, close to 12 million domestic tourists. And most of these people will be on the roads driving their own cars because our private car ownership is the second highest in Asia. I've been saying many times that Malaysia needs much better domestic connectivity, both at the intercity and within the city level, intracity and intercity. And I've also recommended very clearly that the Malaysian government forget about the KL-Singapore high-speed railway for now. You want to visit it 20 years later, 30 years later, fine. For now, the urgent and the top priority for the Malaysian government is to focus on urgently improving the mobility of the millions of ordinary Malaysians on a daily basis. Why should every town and city in Malaysia suffer for so long from a traffic congestion crisis which is solvable? Our recommendation to Prime Minister Anwar is for him to announce a properly planned policy whereby every city and town, let's say above a certain population size and density in Malaysia, must have either a LRT or MRT system. And please slow down or stop building wasteful flyovers, highways, roads, and so on and so forth. They are wasting our money. Yes, to answer the request from our follower, Hindun8481, yes, Penang and JB must have LRT. So should Malacca, Seremban, Kota Baru, Sungai Petani, Klang, Kota Kinabalu, and a lot more. This will be how Malaysia can become a developed economy, not merely a high-income country. I'm passionate about this because I've been saying this for many years. As I've shown you, our past iCapital publications, we have written about it in a very detailed manner. And the problem has gotten worse ever since. Now, China is not only extremely well developed in the high-speed and normal-speed railways. The Chinese government has also developed the intracity and the public transport system within the city and the conurbation. and their LRT or MRT networks in these conurbations or cities work very well. In 2023 alone, China added, in 1 year alone, China added 360 kilometers of urban rail networks. I'm not referring to large cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Hangzhou, Chengdu, Nanjing, and so on. I'm talking about smaller cities like Xiamen, Foshan, Jiaxing, Wenshan, Huangxi in Hubei province. In Malaysia, the urban road congestion, especially in medium-sized and large conurbations, is always combined with low transport market shares, as public transportation alternatives have been limited and underutilized. While Kuala Lumpur has got excellent MRT system, one has to ask why its utilization is not higher and why single occupant cars are still dominant on the roads in the Klang Valley. You notice a lot of cars have got only one single person inside it, and yet you got the MRT there. Pretty modern, pretty world class. And with the sole exception of KL, no other cities has got MRT or LRT to serve the public. In iCapital, August 2015, again, we write very frankly, I wrote very frankly, the urban congestion problem in Malaysia is not just about traffic jam. It is about why and how our urban traffic systems got so screwed up that even a leading international institution like the World Bank has to write a 93-page report on this problem. What role did poor and bad urban and traffic design and planning play in our urban congestion problem? Dig deeper, investigate more. What role does corruption play in creating our urban congestion problem? Not just in Greater KL, but also Penang, Johor Bahru, etc. Why are tall buildings approved without sufficient car parks? Why are expensive flyovers built for the convenience of only selected people / developers / owners? 2015, August, we're already highlighting this serious crisis. I fervently believe that having well-designed LRT or MRT networks throughout Malaysia will contribute substantially to Malaysia's robust growth and quality development. Minister Rafizi recently said Malaysia is on track to achieve developed nation status by 2028 or 2029. That's 3-4 years away. I humbly beg to differ. A major reason why Malaysia is not there yet is because Malaysia's public transport system is grossly inadequate and backwards. I believe that Malaysia has ignored for too long having a well-planned, well-connected public transport system in towns and cities and between towns and cities. I think the solution is simple, It's not rocket science. It's not like whether Malaysia can have world-class AI capabilities. You're not talking about that kind of problem. This is a situation where many countries have faced before, and many countries have implemented very good, excellent solutions. I didn't have the time, but I wanted to share with you. Maybe I will do it in the next video. For example, the South Korean government, instead of building more highways and so on and so forth, and all those nonsensical infrastructure, the South Korean government, what they did is they demolished a highway, an elevated highway. They demolished an elevated highway which was about a few kilometers long and changed it into a stream in the center of Seoul so that people can walk and enjoy the stream. And the residents in Seoul loved it, and they solved traffic congestion problem. So one of the ways, commonsensically, to solve traffic congestion problem is don't build so many roads, don't build so many highways, so that people don't buy cars. But at the same time, you got to give them good public transport alternatives. It is time for us to seriously and honestly look at what we need to do. The increasing levels of road congestion in large and medium-sized cities, insufficient availability of public transport option as an alternative to car use for urban mobility needs, low levels of public satisfaction with available public transport systems, and rapidly expansion of urban cities, commonly referred to as urban sprawl. They are hampering the movement and threatening the gains from urbanization. Urbanization is supposed to lead to sustainable economic growth and development. Now, to be sure, Malaysia is not the only country facing this kind of problems. But because of our exceptionally high car ownership and the relatively low supply of public transport makes this urban congestion problem a crisis, and it makes it difficult for Malaysia to meet the previous 3 targets of high income, sustainability and inclusiveness. I think it is time for us to take a good look at the 2015 World Bank report titled Transforming Urban Transport. That is the publication, right? Although it is 9-10 years ago, the issues have become a lot more serious, and the solutions are actually staring in our faces now. We have to do something drastic now. If you like our video, if you like what we talk about, how we present it, please subscribe to Capital Dynamics YouTube channel. Like it, please share, and well, the more people who listen, the more followers we have, the more effective our voices, our views will be heard. So with that, I will wish you a good weekend, and at the same time to let you know that there will not be any, of course, with the Chinese New Year coming soon, on the next Saturday, there will be no YouTube video from us. So with that, I hope you make your voices heard and make sure that your MP, your State Assemblyman, your Menteri Besar, whoever it is, listen to you and make our life a much better and comfortable life. Thank you very much.